All right, day 6 morning. A little chilly outside, so we went ahead and switched to doing the work inside. It's just having that little extra chill on the air that doesn't make it comfortable when you're working on a body, and you certainly aren't going to get it to warm up enough to do what you need it to do, especially when you're doing longer work. If you're just doing some quick stuff, that's one thing, sport level things or something. But when you're working for a little while and you're working with deep intent to get in there, my hands need to be warm. Their body needs to be able to warm up too. Thankfully, we just did a little bit of work, dropping off some tables, picnic tables that Don had delivered. And so his muscles are a little bit warmed up. Had a sweatshirt on before we came back in. He's got his little heat dish going in the background. And on we go. How'd you sleep, Don?
I slept pretty good until 3:30, and then my arm started to hurt a little bit, and I got up. I wasn't feeling all that great getting up. It took a couple hours just to feel normal.
Right.
But better than the past mornings.
Very good, very good. What do you do when you get up at 3:30 in the morning?
I make bread.
Good. This is definitely one of those opportune times I talk about where you wake up and your body says you're done, time to get up, so you get up. But during that opportune time when you wake up, you also need to think about self-care, especially when you're in pain. It's harder to do, that's true. You don't generally want to think about self-care, but this is definitely the time to be thinking about self-care at that moment. And that's where you should be conscious of how you're getting up, conscious of how you're moving, and slowly starting to warm those muscles up and getting them going so that you can feel good about the day, feel good about what you need to do.
Well, I do a little bit of that during the early morning hours. A little bit of it, just getting started, until I can do more at about 5:30 when the sun is starting to make things light.
Yeah.
I can get out and just start to bend and move my body a little bit.
Well, you know my suggestions, so.
I'm in a state of healing, so I'm only going to get better and better.
It's a good exampling of it. When our bodies get cold, especially with days like this is what happens. You talk about, everybody talks about, oh, that old injury, I can tell rain's coming and things like that. Well, that's a barometric pressure in the joint capsules, and it allows the body to actually expand to a certain degree from the pressures outside.
Yeah, I never thought of that. Barometric pressure.
Makes a big difference.
It's not as much the cold or the overcast sky.
It's the feeling of the change in the air around you. Changes the pressure on the body and inside the body as well.
My sleep is a little bit better each night, though, so that's one good thing.
And that's the goal. I don't have any undue expectations like, oh, we're going to do this in a few days and bam, you're going to be magically perfect. What I'm saying is it's getting it into your body that this is the practice, this is the new practice, so that we can get better and better.
Yeah, the regularness of this intensity, twice a day for 7 days. Well, the body is trying to heal, and in doing that, there's some upsettedness.
That's very correct.
We're working on it quite hard.
Yeah, we're tearing down the muscles constantly, and then they're rebuilding, and so it takes a lot of extra effort, and it's even tougher, of course, when we change the weather, and you're like, oh, you don't have that warmth to just draw on and allow the whole body to be relaxed in that side of it. You're like, oh, I got to deal with this temperature change and everything else. But those are practices and challenges as well. You're starting to remember to let go. It's a common problem, common practice problem. spend these first 7 days really getting it into you. It's like hard training to a certain degree. Eventually I'll have a program designed around it. It won't be a twice a day thing, I think. It'll probably be a once a day with the hard training involved. So you come out, see us, stay out here for, and this is injury. This is hard injury right here. This is what we've been dealing with. They'll come out and stay for, a week, and you're getting a solid week of once a day work. More than likely it'll be table or floor work and or mat work, and the rest of it is exercise. Getting your body prepared for taking care of yourself, getting some of the new habits put into place. I haven't really pressed on heavily on the degree of exercise. If I was able to do it normally, it would be from dawn to dusk. You would be constantly working, keeping the body going. Some of it's very rehabilitative, relaxing, some of it's harder stuff, but that's what it would end up being over time.
Wow, a real all-day intensive.
Yeah.
But you'd probably have some restoration or some...
Oh, there'd be restoration included in it as well. And the reasoning being beyond the fixing of the body and preparing is that I'm preparing this stuff in your body. I'm trying to get your body used to doing things in a certain fashion, so that when you're not here and I'm not teaching you directly and you're just listening to the podcast and you're watching the videos, but you're still doing what you need to, that's what it comes down to, is you're still able to do what you need to for the body. This is very guarded on this side, guarding for the pectoralis minor on the other side. Just getting in there and kind of prying things loose. You really gotta, a person's gotta get in there and work around and figure out what they're dealing with, because there are going to be slightly different things with each person, and the general work portion of it is going to be very different as well. So that's the intuitive part of understanding what's going on. And like I've said in all the previous videos, that the original injury is deeper. This is just a secondary injury that's brought out more.
How do you rate my pain threshold or tenderness?
Well,
Similar, less?
in a lot of the broad spectrum areas, it's not as bad, but we're still dealing with the more specific small parts, like Terry's minor being quite upset, Terry's major being quite upset still. And I know that's a lot of the pectoralis stuff, and that just takes time. I'll tell you right now, man, that takes time, and reteaching the body how to lay requires quite a bit more working on different specific yogic exercises or stretches to allow that memory to change so that the back can be flattened. There is a certain degree, we're laying in the chair, so there's a certain degree of roundness here, but there, you see, typically there's a certain degree of roundness in Don's back that needs to be corrected because the shoulders are drawn inward. After this series, we're going to let his body heal for a few days, and then we're going to go to the once a day. We're going to be doing table or mat work, probably mat work, we'll see, and we're only going to be doing it once a day. We're going to do another 7-day series on that. See what we get, see how things come out. You see me pat him every once in a while in different spots, and that's just me bringing a reminder, hey, let go, let go, let go, Yeah. Getting deeper into those muscles. Deeper in there. A person could use, once they get it warmed up or set it up right, they could use that buffing device. I've seen a lot of the different ones. It looks like literally like a car buffer, and they stick it on there and go to town on it.
Oh, you know, my daughter acquired one of those.
Yeah. And they're good if you understand what you're using it for. They're really good for reorganizing muscles once they're in the right place. Also, just trying to generally warm it up, but you can't just settle on top of a spot. You have to kind of angle your movements just like you would your fists, just like you would your hands.
Well, it's a pretty powerful vibrator or whatever it is, and you can put different heads on. I would think that would save a lot of the basic groundwork sometimes for getting somebody warmed and loosened up.
It can, but it doesn't give you a connection, right? I don't get connected. Right? That's a separation.
That's true.
A large separation. So even when I have in the past, and whether I'm using sticks or my axes or joking around or doing those tools, I create the connection before I do the work. And then I got to check the connection as I'm going to make sure things are working the way I want it to work.
So if somebody doesn't have the sensitivity or the knowledge, they could use that machine and at least get some basic, I don't know what. Oh!
Well, it really depends, right? So each person's going to respond to it differently, and also the use of it too. So if I just sat it right here, eventually it's probably going to numb the spot, depending on what head I have on there. But if I know for sure, okay, I'm trying to open this area between here and here on the teres minor, which is deeper inside of there, then I'm going to sit there and with my thumbs or with my fists and work that out. Well, if I take that same device and sit it there and just vibrate it, you know, full bore. But am I pushing? Am I opening? Am I reorganizing? Or am I just pushing in? What am I doing? You really still do need to know what you're doing if you want to do it right. Now, in general, are you going to hurt somebody with that? Probably not. I mean, it takes a significant amount of pressure to cause major damages and stuff. So you would be okay on that in general. There's a lot of tools available out there, absolutely. I mean, we could use a ball, we could use tennis balls, we could use all sorts of different things to create effect and take some strain off of our hands and wrists and stuff and our fingers. But you still need to be connected to what you're doing with your client. That's why there is a million different types of massage devices out there, mechanical ones, but in the end everybody wants to have somebody put their hands on it because that connection is what makes the big difference. And the stronger the healer is in their healing capacity, the better that connection. That's the end result. We're dealing with completely different than mechanical stuff. I like to go sit in those chairs when Costco's open and sit on the ones where they got the foot massage. I know we talked about you were looking at maybe buying one of those foot massage ones. And they're good. They're fun. They really do get in there and vibrate and make you feel better, but there's something extremely different between them and somebody who can put their hands on you and actually do the work. And it'll help. It'll help to a certain degree. I'm not going to say anything negative against them, that's for sure. But you can certainly start utilizing it to the point where you're overusing it. A lot of this, even here where I'm working with this teres minor, and I know it's the teres minor and right up against the border of the major because of placement along the scapula, because it's slightly up on the lateral border above the teres major. And a lot of this is, you know, going to carry a long time. It's going to take some time to get that injury out of there. So you can irritate it. You can definitely over-irritate it by overstimulating it, both by physical work as well as, you know, like this type of work, as well as using some of those different devices. I have one of those hook ones that go on there I've used before in this area, and you can really piss that area off using those devices. And I've used the different massagers in those areas too. And it feels good for a little bit, but they end up pissing it off. Somewhere along the line, you need somebody to go in there and do some long-term healing work. So, not only am I, you know, pinching a certain degree, holding on to this area, I'm mentally going in and seeing what's going on in there, and if there's anything I can do to help convince it to release or just talk to it about releasing. Still pretty chunky in there though. Just bringing a little awareness there. That arm go again. Not always standing. Sometimes you got to get the best position is to get into a kneel too, especially with this chair. The chair is fun, it's useful, but it's not a substitute for certain positions either. There we go. My way up into those subs. Again, we're back to that beautiful pec minor stuff. And it's not just the pec minor, we're also dealing with right along that clavicle right there. So we're dealing with the pec major. I deal with mine every once in a while. And once we start including the pec major into the game, we got to deal with the sternocleidomastoid mastoid as well. If it's just the pec minor, then we're dealing with the rest of the rotator cuff group, no problem at all. Coming up to the coracobrachialis. Very chunky on the inside of the arm. Very, even though I can get the triceps and biceps to kind of separate, we're still got a lot of extra swelling inside of here. A lot of extra swelling. Still some fairly upset muscles in here. Really got to think about when muscles are tight on one side, they're going to pull everything spinally one way. So that means you're eventually going to tighten the other side, or you're going to put the other side into a stress as well. So we've released a bunch there. Now we got to talk to this side over here and say, hey, come on, calm down. Let that spine come back over. Give it a little bit of room. We don't have to be as in depth on this side because it's not going to be as troublesome. Nice open elbow on this side, by the way. Almost completely open there.
Oh, those mechanisms you're doing are so helpful.
Yeah.
I just feel it so helpful.
And you can tell how much of a difference is even here in the pec minor, even though it's a little bit chunky in there, it's nowhere near as bad as the other side. It's not that same soreness. It's not dragging across. And really, all it takes is one small labral tear in there, or really inflamed bursa right up inside the chromium process to cause all sorts of grand issues to start to happen. And if you keep inflaming inward and getting worse, it's going to get the brachial plexus, both anterior and posterior, so inflamed that you're going to start ending up with carpal tunnel. He already has a type of trigger finger that you were dealing with. You're going to have all sorts of fun things happening. Eventually hypertension in the bloodstream, because the ribs are going to be compressing down on the heart. We're going to get up here and check the neck area. Another interesting byproduct that can happen too from having too much strain in the neck area and up in the cervical spines is you could end up with a major tooth pain.
Wow.
Yeah, as it squeezes down on your masseter, your muscles around there that help you mash things up and eat. It will eventually, especially if you already have a possible tooth thing going on as well, it'll present there. But a way to notice it is maybe your tooth is a little, it's a little sensitive when you bite or when you drink or something like that, and you're like, wow, it kind of feels weird, and then it gets worse and worse, and it may not even be a tooth issue at all, other than the fact that you're so much tension on the muscles in the jaw that is causing tension in the muscles in the face on that one side, and it's presenting as a tooth pain. But again, it's a pain signal telling you, hey, there's a muscle in here that needs to be dealt with too. I myself am dealing with something very similar to that. And I've been able to successfully, by working out these muscles in my head and face, the temporals, and then around the SCM, the masseter, I've been able to release the tension and all the pain goes away. Even the sensitivity to cold fluids. I want to make sure that they're able to see in the video what I'm doing with my fist. Warm the area up. Some of these techniques are a little odd in positioning because I'm still videoing, so I'm not 100% accurate in my positions. Still doing the job it's supposed to do. Now, something to think about, the point to point out is all the way down here on the top of our iliac crest, we got our lat, the most superficial muscle, the lat that comes along, connects into that arm. So if there's problems in the teres major and teres minor because of the pectoralis minor, right, from that damage inside of there, it's going to inflame, and it's going to inflame against this lat. And when it inflames against the lat, it's going to pull right down here. So it's going to create issues down here in the hip. But as these already probably have some degree of issues in the QLs, and also your transverse abdominis, your oblique abdominis, and then if you're having any issues along your, which most people do, along their gluteus medius, what you're going to end up with is this area getting inflamed, pulling everything right here, and see where my thumb's at, right on that teres major minor border, causing it to stay inflamed. So if you don't take the tension off of here, after you've done all the work up here, and now going back and forth, then you're going to just re-inflame super fast. So that's paying attention to the lines of how things work. And if this is super inflamed down here when you're working, then you know you're going to be working this side for certain to take some of the tension off the fact that it's been pulled for so long.
Wow.
And that's being able to sense. So if you're just using that car buffer going to town and you don't take the time to figure out where things are at and what's going on, then you're missing quite a bit. Quite a bit. That's getting into the heart of actually being able to palpate properly. Understand what you're looking at, feeling underneath there.
Well, palpating is one of the keys of the success that your skill.
Palpating with sensitivity.
Yeah.
So I mean, anybody can palpate, knowing what you're feeling is the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's intrinsic, but it's pretty obvious too. You can tap around and see how things react. Everybody's got their own version of what works best in their mind. For those who are really good at palpating, we have our ways.
Well, how did you get to be particularly good, sense of it at a practice?
Practice, lots of practice. And then paying attention to what's going on. I mean, both within my body, because I practice on my body all the time too, as well as practicing in other people. We're always practicing. Don't think of us massage therapists as anything different than any of the doctors on that side of it. We're just practicing too. And in life, we're always practicing. Whether you're doing your workout or whatnot, you're still practicing. So.
But you seem to have a knowledge of the very inner workings of and names of the muscles or areas or tendons or whatever, and knowledge about where they lie and how they lie.
Well, the body lines and the names and all that stuff is just another language. So as long as you're okay with understanding and learning a language, you'll be fine on that side of it. The rest of it is practice. Practice, practice, practice. And like I've pointed out before, if you take the time to go and volunteer at places, you can volunteer at senior centers. I'm sure there's plenty of seniors that wouldn't mind having a little bit of work done on them. You're just volunteering your time. Make sure you sign off papers as necessary, but volunteer your time. Give yourself an opportunity to treat different things, work on different conditions. Just work on different people. I mean, we're practicing even when I'm being paid, but at the same time, I like to give away a lot of my work to practice. I practice on people randomly when we're out on vacation, which really is what it's about, you know. Going and learning something new. When I went down to Oceanside, I spent quite a bit of time talking to different people and randomly working on people while I was outside smoking. Other smokers, they were like, oh, hey, I got this going on. I'm like, well, if you're willing to let me work on you, we can do it right here. I'd stand there and work on them right there while we're smoking. Getting into the heart of some of this stuff, aren't we? Now we're on the medial border of the scapula. What have we got over here? It's not what's there. It's not the rhomboids. It's not the traps that are above the rhomboids. It's what's below in these ribs. Feel it's on the rib. The rib itself. And where does this rib come back around to? Pectoralis minor area. the chair, will you? We're going to do the pec stretch on this one. Go ahead and let your head fall back. To me. There you go. Take a deep breath against my hands. Let it go. Do it again. Let it go. One more. Let it go.
Oh, major serious opening there.
Yeah.
Good one.
All right, well,
Good one.
Come on up, Don.
Oh.
We definitely ran a little longer on our video on this morning one, and that's okay. I don't mind.
Some hard work healing again on this day.
Yeah.
Very relevant, very important. Strong hands and intelligent hands, and knowing what he's doing, it is working. It is healing, and I am grateful.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You're Don. Keep with us on the ride. We still have 3 more sessions, one afternoon one, and then tomorrow our last 2 as far as this session thing, and then we're going to be getting into some different area of stuff, which will be really fun. Have a fantastic day.